What I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you think you know about the first day of school. Two brothers, ages 6 and 8, left for their first day at a new elementary school on September 3rd, 1980. They were excited, nervous, carrying their brand new backpacks and lunchboxes. They never made it to class. For 20 years, their family searched desperately for answers, following every lead, chasing every hope. Then in 2000, during a routine renovation of their old school building, construction workers made a discovery that would crack this case wide open. Hidden behind a false wall was a secret room that had been sealed for decades, and what they found inside would reveal a truth so disturbing it would destroy the reputation of one of America's most trusted institutions forever. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this investigation unfolds. And let me know in the comments, do you remember your first day at a new school? What was that experience like for you? September 3rd, 1980. The small town of Millbrook, Pennsylvania was buzzing with back-to-school excitement. 8-year-old Danny Walsh and his 6-year-old brother Tommy were getting ready for their first day at Riverside Elementary School. The family had just moved to Millbrook from Pittsburgh when their father, Michael Walsh, got a job at the local paper mill. Danny was going into 3rd grade, a serious boy with dark hair and thoughtful eyes who loved reading and building model airplanes. Tommy was starting 1st grade, an energetic kid with a gap-toothed grin who couldn't sit still for more than 5 minutes. Their mother, Carol Walsh, had spent the previous week preparing for this big day, buying school supplies, labeling everything with their names, and taking them to visit the school playground so they'd feel comfortable. Riverside Elementary was a classic brick building built in the 1950s with long hallways, high ceilings, and that distinctive smell of floor wax and cafeteria food that every American kid recognizes. The principal, Mrs. Eleanor Hutchinson, was a stern but kind woman who had been running the school for 15 years. Teachers loved working for her, parents respected her, and children knew that she was fair but firm. That morning, Carol walked both boys to the school bus stop at the corner of Maple Street and 3rd Avenue. Danny carried his new blue backpack and a lunchbox featuring his favorite cartoon character, Scooby-Doo. Tommy had insisted on a red backpack to match his favorite color, and his lunchbox had pictures of superheroes on it. "Remember what we talked about," Carol told them as the yellow school bus approached. "Stay together, listen to your teachers, and I'll be right here waiting when you get home." "We will, Mum," Danny promised, taking his little brother's hand as they climbed onto the bus. Tommy was practically bouncing with excitement, pressing his face against the window to wave goodbye to his mother. That was the last time Carol Walsh ever saw her sons. When the school bus didn't return that afternoon, Carol wasn't immediately worried. Maybe there had been a delay. Maybe the boys were staying after school for some orientation activity. But when 4 o'clock came and went with no sign of the bus, she called Riverside Elementary. The secretary who answered the phone sounded confused. "Mrs. Walsh? I'm sorry, but Danny and Tommy never arrived at school today. Their teachers marked them absent." Carol's blood turned to ice. "That's impossible. I put them on the bus myself this morning." She immediately called the bus company. The driver, a 25-year veteran named Frank Kowalski, was equally puzzled. "I picked up 2 boys at Maple and 3rd this morning," he told Carol. "Dark-haired kids, one older than the other. But when I got to school and started unloading, they weren't on the bus anymore." How do 2 children disappear from a moving school bus in broad daylight? Keep watching, because the answer to that question will reveal a conspiracy that had been operating in plain sight for years. Carol Walsh called the Millbrook Police Department at 4:47 p.m. on September 3rd, 1980. The officer who took her call was Detective Ray Patterson, a 20-year veteran who had never worked a missing children case. He immediately dispatched patrol cars to search the route between the Walsh home and Riverside Elementary School. The initial investigation revealed something deeply troubling. Bus driver Frank Kowalski's story didn't add up. When pressed for details, he admitted that he had made an unscheduled stop that morning at the request of Principal Hutchinson. She'd called the bus company early that morning, claiming that there was a problem with the school's septic system and that all new students needed to be taken to the district's administrative building for temporary processing. Detective Patterson contacted Principal Hutchinson immediately. Her response sent chills down his spine. "I never called the bus company," she told him firmly. "And there's no problem with our septic system. We've been expecting those Walsh boys all day." Someone had impersonated Principal Hutchinson, convincing the bus driver to deliver Danny and Tommy Walsh to a location that wasn't their school. The EU administrative building was checked immediately. No one there had seen the boys, and no temporary processing had been scheduled. The FBI was called in within 24 hours. Agent Susan Crawford, who specialized in child abduction cases, arrived from the Philadelphia office with a team of investigators. She had worked dozens of missing children cases, but something about the Walsh disappearance felt different from the beginning. "This wasn't a crime of opportunity," Agent Crawford told reporters. "Someone planned this carefully. They knew the boys' names, they knew their bus route, and they had enough knowledge of the school district to make their story believable." The search for Danny and Tommy Walsh consumed the entire community of Millbrook. Volunteers organized search parties that combed through every wooded area, abandoned building, and vacant lot in a 50-mile radius. Police dogs followed scent trails that led nowhere. Helicopters flew grid patterns over the Pennsylvania countryside. Carol and Michael Walsh appeared on television every night, pleading for information about their sons. Carol clutched Danny's favorite book and Tommy's stuffed elephant, speaking directly to whoever had taken her children. "Please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "They're just little boys. Danny gets scared in the dark and Tommy can't sleep without his elephant. Please bring them home to us." The case made national headlines. America's Most Wanted featured the Walsh brothers twice. Psychics contacted the family, claiming to have visions about the boys' location. Tips poured in from across the country, but none of them led to the children. As weeks turned to months, the investigation hit dead end after dead end. The person who had impersonated Principal Hutchinson was never identified. No one had seen Danny and Tommy get off the school bus at any location. It was as if the two brothers had simply vanished into thin air. But Agent Crawford noticed something that would haunt her for the next 20 years. This wasn't the first time children had disappeared in connection with the Millbrook School District. Her research revealed a pattern that was both subtle and terrifying. Over the previous 15 years, at least 6 other children had vanished under circumstances involving the school system. A girl who disappeared after staying late for tutoring. Twin boys who went missing during a field trip. A kindergartner who never made it home from school despite being marked present all day. Each case had been investigated separately, and because they were spread out over many years, no one had noticed the connection. But when Agent Crawford mapped them out, the pattern was undeniable. Someone with access to the school system had been abducting children for over a decade. The investigation expanded to include every employee who had worked in the Millbrook School District during the 15-year period. Teachers, administrators, janitors, bus drivers, cafeteria workers. Everyone was interviewed, background checked, and polygraph tested. Nothing. Every employee appeared to be exactly what they claimed to be. No criminal backgrounds, no suspicious behavior, no red flags of any kind. Think about this for a moment. How does someone operate inside a school system for 15 years, abducting children without leaving any trace? The answer is more horrifying than you could imagine. As 1980 turned into 1981 and then 1982, the active investigation into Danny and Tommy Walsh began to wind down. The FBI reduced their involvement. Local police moved on to other cases. The community of Millbrook slowly returned to normal life, though the missing children were never forgotten. Carol Walsh never returned to work. She spent her days driving around Millbrook and neighboring towns, showing photos of her sons to anyone who would look. Michael continued his job at the paper mill, but co-workers said he became a different person, quiet, withdrawn, aged beyond his years. The family moved away from Millbrook in 1985, unable to bear living in the place where they'd lost their children. But they left behind a reward fund and their contact information with local police, hoping that someday someone would have information about Danny and Tommy. Principal Hutchinson retired in 1990 after 25 years of service. The Quiche's community honored her with a ceremony recognizing her dedication to education and child welfare. She was praised as one of the finest principals in Pennsylvania's history, someone who had devoted her life to protecting and nurturing children. The cruel irony of that praise would become clear 10 years later. In the summer of 2000, the Millbrook School District decided to renovate Riverside Elementary School. The building was showing its age, and the district had received a state grant to modernize the facility. The construction company hired for the job was Morrison & Sons, a family-owned business that had been serving the area for over 40 years. Jack Morrison, the company's founder, was personally overseeing the renovation. His crew was working on expanding the school's library when they encountered an unexpected problem. According to the building's original blueprints, there should have been a utility room behind the library's north wall. But when they broke through the wall, they found something completely different. Hidden behind the false wall was a small room, approximately 10 feet by 12 feet, that didn't appear on any of the building's official plans. The room had been carefully soundproofed and ventilated, with its own electrical system that was connected to the school's main power grid, but hidden from view. Jack Morrison called the police immediately. Within hours, the scene was crawling, with investigators, forensic technicians, and FBI agents. What they found in that secret room would finally solve the Walsh case and expose one of the most sophisticated child abuse operations in American history. The room contained evidence of prolonged occupation by children. There were small beds, children's clothing in various sizes, toys, books, and art supplies. But most disturbing of all were the detailed records that had been left behind. Carefully filed in a metal cabinet were documents describing 17 different children who had been held in the room over a 20-year period. The files included photographs, medical records, and detailed notes about each child's behavior, preferences, and training progress. The names Danny Walsh and Tommy Walsh appeared in the most recent files, dated September 1980. Agent Crawford, who had never given up on the Walsh case, was called back to Millbrook to examine the evidence. What she found in those files was evidence of a systematic operation to abduct, abuse, and ultimately sell children to buyers across the country. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. The handwriting in the files matched the handwriting of someone who had been above suspicion for 20 years, Principal Eleanor Hutchinson. The investigation that followed revealed the horrifying truth about Riverside Elementary School. Principal Hutchinson had been using her position to identify vulnerable children, kids from troubled homes, children with behavioral problems, students whose disappearance might not be immediately noticed or thoroughly investigated. She had accomplices throughout the school system. The janitor, Harold Barnes, had built the secret room and helped maintain it. The school nurse, Margaret Stone, had been falsifying attendance records to cover children's absences. Even the school's guidance counselor, Robert Mills, had been identifying potential victims. The operation was sophisticated and profitable. Children were held in the secret room for weeks or months while buyers were located. The buyers were wealthy individuals from across the country who were willing to pay enormous sums for children who came with forged documents creating new identities. Danny and Tommy Walsh had been among the most recent victims. According to the files, they had been sold to a buyer in Nevada in October 1980, just 1 month after their disappearance. The buyer was identified as a man named Richard Stanton, who had been paying $50,000 per child for what he believed were orphans being placed through a private adoption service. Federal agents raided Stanton's Nevada ranch in November 2000. What they found there was a compound housing 12 children of various ages, all living under assumed names, all believing that Stanton was their adoptive father who had rescued them from tragic circumstances. Among those children were 2 young men, ages 26 and 24, who had been living on the ranch for 20 years under the names David and Michael Stanton. DNA testing confirmed what investigators hoped. These were Danny and Tommy Walsh. The reunion between the Walsh family and their sons was unlike anything the FBI agents had ever witnessed. Carol and Michael Walsh, now in their 60s, traveled to Nevada to meet the adult men their children had become. But the reunion was complicated by the psychological damage that had been done. Danny and Tommy had no memory of their life before, the ranch. They had been told that their parents had died in a car accident and that Richard Stanton had adopted them out of kindness. They remembered nothing about Millbrook, nothing about their first day of school, nothing about the family that had never stopped searching for them. The deprogramming process was long and difficult. Slowly, with the help of specialist therapists, the brothers began to recover fragments of their childhood memories. Danny remembered building model airplanes with his father. Tommy remembered his mother reading bedtime stories. These recovered memories were like precious gifts to parents who had thought they would never see their children again. Richard Stanton was arrested and charged with child trafficking, but his case revealed the scope of the operation's reach. He had been purchasing children from Hutchinson's network for over 15 years, believing he was participating in a legitimate private adoption service. When he learned the truth about how the children had been obtained, he cooperated fully with investigators. Principal Eleanor Hutchinson was arrested at her retirement home in Florida. At age 73, she showed no remorse for her crimes. During her interrogation, she told investigators that she had been saving children from inadequate families and placing them with people who could provide better lives. Her accomplices were arrested throughout Pennsylvania and neighboring states. Harold Barnes, the janitor who had built the secret room, was found dead in his home, apparently from suicide the day before agents arrived to arrest him. Margaret Stone, the school nurse, was sentenced to life in prison. Robert Mills, the guidance counselor, received 25 years. The investigation revealed that at least 43 children had been victimized by the network over 2 decades. Of those, 31 were successfully located and reunited with their families or surviving relatives. 12 were never found, their fate unknown. The secret room at Riverside Elementary was preserved as evidence throughout the trials. After the convictions were final, the school district decided to demolish the entire building rather than continue using a facility that had housed such horrors. Danny and Tommy Walsh chose to reclaim their original names and rebuild relationships with their parents. The process was difficult. They were adults trying to reconnect with parents they couldn't remember, dealing with the trauma of learning that their entire lives had been built on lies. But slowly, the family began to heal. Danny, who had always loved building things, became a construction worker like his father had once been. Tommy discovered a talent for working with children and became an elementary school teacher, dedicating his career to protecting kids the way he wished someone had protected him. The Walsh case led to significant changes in school security and child protection protocols. Background checks became more thorough, and schools implemented buddy systems to ensure that no adult could be alone with a child for extended periods. Principal Eleanor Hutchinson died in prison in 2007, taking many secrets with her to the grave. She never revealed the full extent of her network, or provided information that might have helped locate the 12 children who were never found. Carol Walsh died in 2010, having lived long enough to see her sons graduate college, get married, and start families of their own. At her funeral, Danny and Tommy spoke about the mother who never gave up hope, who spent 20 years believing they were still alive somewhere. Michael Walsh lived until 2015, long enough to meet his grandchildren and see his sons become the men they were meant to be. He said the hardest part wasn't the 20 years of not knowing what had happened to his boys. It was watching them struggle to remember the childhood that had been stolen from them. Today, the site where Riverside Elementary once stood is a memorial park dedicated to missing children. A plaque honors the victims of the Hutchinson network and reminds visitors that predators can hide behind any mask of respectability. Danny Walsh works as a child advocate, helping families navigate the system when their children go missing. Tommy teaches 5th grade at a school just outside Millbrook, where many of his students don't know about his past, but benefit from his determination to keep children safe. The secret room that held them captive for weeks in 1980 was dismantled piece by piece and preserved in FBI evidence storage. Agents say it serves as a reminder that evil can hide in the most unexpected places, protected by institutions we trust to keep our children safe. But perhaps the most important lesson from the Walsh case is that no amount of time is too long to keep searching for missing children. If the school renovation hadn't uncovered that secret room, Danny and Tommy might never have learned their true identities or reunited with their family. The case also demonstrates how predators can use positions of authority and trust to commit unspeakable crimes. Principal Hutchinson was honored by her community for decades, while she was systematically destroying families and trafficking children. What strikes me most about this case is how ordinary that first day of school seemed. Two little boys excited about starting at a new school, a mother making sure they had everything they needed, a normal yellow school bus that should have taken them safely to class. None of them could have imagined that they were walking into a trap that had been 20 years in the making. What do you think about the long-term psychological impact on Danny and Tommy? How do you rebuild a relationship with parents you can't? Remember, could you forgive a system that failed to protect you so completely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story affected you the way it affected me, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more investigations into cases that prove we must never stop fighting for missing children. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might help bring another family back together. And remember, if you ever see something suspicious involving children, trust your instincts and report it immediately. You could be the person who finally brings a family the answers they've been searching for decades. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, where we'll explore another case that shows how the most dangerous predators often hide behind the institutions we trust most.